Hey guys, what's up? This is Insanity. Got a gameplay of Black Ops Cold War on PC. It's time for another Marvel movie review, this time being Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which I didn't watch on opening weekend, but about 3 weeks later. Naturally, this means I was already spoiled in advance before watching a movie, but thankfully for my viewing experience, I was still able to view it with a mostly fresh look. I deliberately avoided watching some clips that surfaced online from leaked camera recordings to preserve some of that freshness of the movie, because even if you have the whole wiki summary in text format, how it plays out on screen is a different story entirely. I thought now would be a good time to do my little review of Shang-Chi, given that it just released on Disney+, and given that it's been 2 months since I watched the movie, I think I can avoid shiny new toy syndrome and judge the movie on its own merits. The TLDR version of my review is good movie with some clear flaws, 8 out of 10. Black Widow was a movie that was easy to be more critical of due to how last year it is, considering that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done nothing but move forward, but I was surprised to be a little more critical of Shang-Chi from the first viewing, despite the good score I gave it. I'll hereby refer to Shang-Chi as Sean just so that I don't have to embarrass myself with my inability to enunciate his name properly. Plus, it's an alias he himself in the movie picked out, so that just makes things all the more convenient. Let's start with the more critical stuff first, which on my end isn't much. This was a cool martial arts flick for the first half, but the second half engages in the mysticism aspect, and while there's still some martial arts involved, it's downplayed heavily. I think if you're a fan though of Avatar: The Last Airbender, perhaps the movie's second half will remind you a lot about it, and maybe it might be easier to appreciate the shift in focus. Once the movie shifts to magical villages halfway through, it felt like some of the main characters lost their character and either spoke generic plot-moving dialogue such as "go after him," or they barely spoke. I felt this with Sean and most especially his sister, who has their own story of wanting to feel empowered in the face of figuratively losing her family who abandoned her for their own reasons and left her to her own devices, but apart from a neat introduction as the creator of her own underground fighting ring, and occasionally showing her displeasure towards Sean and their father, the mysticism half of the movie has her barely say anything noteworthy until the post-credits scene. I've never watched Awkwafina in anything until now, so I don't know where the behavior of her character, who by the way is completely original and never existed in the comics, will be grating in the other things she acted in, but the second half does rein her in and make her more serious while completely losing her character, so at the very least that's a plus. Lastly, Simu Liu nails the everyman aspect to his character, and I'm not sure if he's a really good actor since I've never seen him in anything else, but at the very least, a lot of his scenes had him feel natural. He feels exactly the way an Asian guy would behave in friend groups. Even if he wasn't actually acting, I was able to get behind him for his character of Sean. However, he does kind of fall short in some of the more dramatic scenes since his facial expression is it's kind of flat at times and doesn't emote as strongly. The one scene in the trailer where he yells, "Is this what you wanted?" at his father has the correct facial expression for his anger, so it's not that Simu Liu can't emote, but I feel that most of his scenes where he was either angry or worried could have used better facial expression to convey those emotions. It doesn't help that the father, the antagonist of the film, is played by an amazing actor who is a veteran of Chinese cinema and can sell practically anything with just his facial expressions alone, no dialogue needed. Put them in the same room and it's just clear who is actually dominating the scenery. These are the 3 critical points I have of the movie. That being said, there are definitely some good things about the film. You get essentially the Asian version of Black Panther with some nice world building, and it contrasts greatly with the previous post-Endgame MCU related installments, as we are actually moving forward with completely new characters, but we do get fun cameos and return appearances of previously established characters. Sean of course has one thing over Black Panther, and even over other MCU films, and that is the action. Though we have some good action in the MCU here and there, we haven't gotten hand-to-hand action with a steady camera and lingering shots for a long while. One of the coolest bits for Sean is that some of Jackie Chan's stunt team were brought in to help with the fight choreography, and it definitely shows. 2 of the action scenes in the first half of the movie have very clear Jackie Chan influences, the bus fight in San Francisco, and the scaffolding fight scene in Macau. Jackie Chan fight scenes are honestly still superior, since that man is willing to break every bone in his body just to ensure perfected choreography, but having a taste of that, even if it's to a smaller scale in a Marvel movie, is pretty cool. Once we get to the mystic half of the movie, the anime-style fight between Sean and his father with the rings is also pretty cool, though the rest of the action doesn't compare to all the other fights in the movie from the first half. I like the use of flashbacks to cover Sean's origin without having to make the movie a whole origin story. We get Sean in the present day, and we slowly learn more about him as the movie goes on. And the flashbacks are also used to cover the antagonist's origin, who gets to be a fully realized character within minutes, making this movie just as much about him as it is about Sean. He's a great character and antagonist without outright being a total villain. Like, imagine Michael Keaton's Vulture if he had a bigger notoriety and was running a much larger crime ring, and that's Wenwu. Although he's intended to be the real Mandarin after the whole fake-out from Iron Man 3, he's not exactly the Mandarin from the comics. It's honestly a shame that he and Tony Stark won't ever interact with each other, since both have amazing actors with immense screen presence, and seeing how they play off of each other if this was Tony Stark's Mandarin, as opposed to Sean's Mandarin, would have been something. In fact, it's the fake Mandarin with General Slattery who brings up Tony Stark, so Wenwu apparently never registered Tony Stark on his radar, even though his organization was responsible for Tony Stark eventually becoming Iron Man. Man, talk about another missed opportunity. Still, this is Sean's movie, so I'll have to leave it as a nitpick rather than an actual critique of the movie. Overall, Shaun is one of the better Phase 4 installments, and if COVID impacted its production, it seems subtle enough and still feels like a complete production compared to the other Phase 4 stuff. If you got Disney Plus, give Shaun and 10 Rings a watch. That's the gameplay and commentary. Hope you enjoyed it, and Insanity is out.